Good morning, all. Can you hear me? Well, good morning. Thank you for being here and welcome. I know I sat at dinner last night with a couple from Finland and a couple from Jerusalem, so I know that you've all, or some of you, have come a very long way to be here. Thank you. I'm Andrew Schoelkopf. I'm the board chair of the Chordoma Foundation, and I want to do two things this morning. First, just to welcome you and give you a little insight on my experience, and then to introduce Josh Sommer, who's our sort of rock star executive director of the foundation. So whenever I'm at Sloan Kettering, which is obviously a fantastic institution, I'm reminded of my own experience with cancer, which I say, I've never experienced cancer because I've never had it myself, but we've had a tremendous amount of experience with cancer as my family. My father passed away here at Sloan Kettering 26 years ago. This April 7th will be 26 years. My mother was diagnosed with her first cancer when I was in the second grade in 1974 and had her first treatment here at Sloan Kettering. She's had two subsequent cancer diagnoses, and August 1st of this year will celebrate her 89th birthday, which is a great adventure. And more recently, my brother Robert Schoelkopf, who is now 51, was diagnosed with chordoma, which was really a kind of punch in the gut for all of us. He's a very talented and gifted physicist, has two young children, and is a professor and runs a quantum institute at Yale University, and is someone that felt like he had a whole lot of good stuff ahead of him and had a lot to do. He, like many of you, I suppose, was initially misdiagnosed, and that led our family on a kind of a trek to try and learn as much as we possibly could and to try and figure out his disease and try and get to the bottom of it. With the help of Sloan Kettering and several other institutions, we eventually got to the bottom of it. He was treated successfully 5.5 years ago, had 3 of his vertebrae in his spine removed, had a couple of ribs removed. We call him Humpty from time to time. He was kind of stitched back together. They built him a new metal cage for his back and kind of made him a new back. And today he is running his physics lab, advising the Joint Chiefs of Staff on national defense issues and making new physics. He's a father to 2 boys, playing squash at a very high level, riding his bike 50 to 70 miles at a time. And people that meet him now have no idea that he was on an operating table for 2.5 days at Johns Hopkins being put back together because he had a very scary cancer. So part of our learning experience about Rob's chordoma was to meet Josh. And one of the things we talk a lot about now, I met Josh and I was just sort of immediately inspired by what he was doing. And I think the things that he's doing in leading the foundation are really magical. And I'm very proud of what he's accomplished. And I'm very proud of what the foundation is accomplishing with his guidance. And one of the things we started talking about when I was asked to lead the Education and Outreach Committee a few years ago was what we're trying to do today. And I think it's really absolutely critical part of this process. What I learned from my father's disease and my mother's disease and my brother's disease is one thing I feel really, really passionate about, and one of the reasons we're here today, which is that patients that take an active role in their disease and their treatment, and what we like to say is that patients who become well-informed about their disease have the greatest chance of beating the disease and surviving the longest. And so Josh and the other folks that are going to speak today are helping, we hope, to help you become better informed about the treatment options that are available and about the disease and about research that's going on. That's one of the most exciting areas, is how quickly research is changing. So I'm going to end with that, but simply to say thank you to our colleagues at Sloan Kettering for welcoming us here today, and thank you all for being here. Josh Sommer, as I'm sure many of you know, is an incredibly inspiring person. He's been running the foundation beautifully. He's doing a terrifically good job in inspiring research and helping people to collaborate. And I'm very proud to introduce him. He's going to lead the rest of the session, and welcome Josh Sommer.
Thank you, Andy. Good morning, everyone. It's really, really good to be here with all of you, and just want to reiterate Andy's welcome on behalf of the board and the staff. And for me personally, it's really exciting to be here with a lot of you who have become close friends over the years, and also to see a lot of new faces. I think this is probably this is our 8th conference now, our 6th in the United States, and I think this is the one where we've probably met the most new people, which is really, really exciting. So for those of you who are new to this community, I think one thing that I want to start off by letting you know is that you're in very good company, because this is a community that really sticks together, that has rallied together, that is there for one another in really remarkable ways, and is working together to make really extraordinary strides in the fight against this disease. So I thought maybe just to start off, I'd provide some historical context for how it was that we all came to be here today. And it really dates back to 2006, when a few of us from this community got together and were determined to try to do something to improve the odds for those of us who had chordoma, to make life better for chordoma patients. And several of the members of this community who got together back in 2006 are actually here with us today, so I want to recognize some of them actually. Johnny Nelson, who's here. Norma Jones, who many of you met last night. Norma, good to see you. And Bill Dorland as well. I don't know if Bill's here yet, but I'm sure everyone will get a chance to meet Bill throughout the day. So really, this group got together, and none of us really knew what to do or how to do it, but we were determined to try to create a better future for those of us who have chordoma. And eventually, that led us to start the Chordoma Foundation with a dual mission. So first of all, to improve the lives of those of us who have chordoma, and importantly, to lead the search for a cure, because ultimately the best way to improve the lives for all of us is to make chordoma a treatable and ultimately curable disease. And I'm excited to say that over the last 8 or 9 years now, we've come a really long way. Our community has grown. There are now over 3,500 members of the chordoma community that are involved in the foundation, that we're in touch with all over the world. It's grown to be a global effort. We're joined today by a number of participants from overseas, including our board member, Hans Kuhlen, who joined us all the way from the Netherlands, and has done just remarkable things organizing both the patient community and the research community over there in the Netherlands. This community has rallied hundreds, literally hundreds of people all over the country and all over the world for that matter, have done fundraisers and volunteered for the foundation, and have really been the bedrock of this organization. We've built a very strong and talented staff and board, and we've got just a really terrific team that is doing wonderful things in a lot of different areas. And together, this team has really energized the global research community. There are now over 300 researchers across the globe that are studying chordoma. We've made huge advances in the science of the disease, and I'm going to talk about that a bit more later, and you'll hear from some of the speakers about some of the research advances that are happening. But in addition to the research, which is so important, we've been from the get-go devoted to trying to improve the lives of those of us who have chordoma. But as we've matured and brought on more staff and evolved as an organization, and in large part due to Andy's leadership, we've really, in recent years, been emphasizing what we can do for the community more and more. Because while there's promising research going on, and that will pay off in terms of better treatments, hopefully in the near future, but certainly in the long run, there's so much that can be done and needs to be done now. And so we are really committed to doing 5 things for this community. First of all, helping everyone who has chordoma learn about chordoma. I would venture, I think it's probably a pretty safe bet that probably no one in this room knew about chordoma before they had it. I'd be surprised if any of you did. We want to make sure that everyone who has chordoma gets the very best care possible and therefore has the very best chance of having a good outcome. There's so many challenges that one faces in dealing with chordoma, whether they be medical challenges, financial challenges, practical challenges of all different types. And and in a way, some of those practical challenges can be as great and as stressful as the medical procedures that one goes through. And we see so often people coming to us, contacting us with so many needs that we feel like we have an obligation to help meet. Importantly, we want to be there to provide emotional support, which is something that this community is really so good at, I think, and it's just so impressive to see how supportive we are of one another. But I think there's a big role that the foundation can play in facilitating that. And then importantly, we want to give everyone a chance to be a part of the solution. I mean, truly, this organization is for us, by us. Sharon said it great last night. If not us, then who? There is no other group of people who are going to solve this problem. It really is us, and we have a huge opportunity by working together to make enormous strides. And so we want to give everyone an opportunity to be part of that effort. So in recent years, we've begun investing more and more in our patient services. These community conferences are a big part of that. And we hope that by participating in this conference, we're able to help you in all of the ways that I just mentioned. So learning about Chordoma, taking action, et cetera. We're also working on improving and enhancing our online resources. So everyone can look forward, and we can talk more about that as the day goes on. I'm really, really pleased to announce that we've just recently started a patient navigation service, which allows anyone who has Chordoma to call into the foundation, to email, to write us. And we are just absolutely thrilled to have on our team now Shannon Lozinsky, who is our patient services manager. She's a social worker and patient navigator extraordinaire, and I'm going to welcome her up here in a second. But Shannon is just doing remarkable things at the foundation and has a really wonderful vision for where we can take our patient services. Another important thing that Shannon is helping to expand and enhance is our peer support program, which is a really wonderful opportunity to be linked up with trained peer guides and mentors who can help you navigate the journey with Chordoma. So with that, I want to welcome and introduce Shannon, our patient services manager, and let her make a few brief remarks.
I get to look at myself on the screen while I'm up here, too. Good morning. I would like to join Andy and Josh in welcoming everyone here this morning. This is an event that we have all been looking forward to with great excitement over the past few weeks. And so I'm really glad to have all of you here with us today. And to those who might be joining us on YouTube for the live streaming, wherever I can wave at you, hello, and we're glad that you're joining us as well. That was a really great thing that we were able to do. I am mostly going to keep my comments to some announcements about today and about some things that you'll see today, and then I'll scoot on out so that we can get on with the day. In the blue folders that you were given this morning, there are a couple important things that you'll find in there. One of those is the session evaluation forms, and there's one of those for each session, and if you would take a moment to fill those out after each session, and then at some point during the day, drop them in the box out on the registration table. Your comments there will continue to help us make sure that we're making these events what you need them to be. So we really appreciate you taking a moment to do that. And there's something else in your folders that's very exciting that I want to tell you about, and that is this booklet, A Patient's Guide to Chordoma Diagnosis and Treatment. So to give you some background on this, in late 2013, the foundation brought together a group of 40 Chordoma experts from around the world, and this effort was led by one of our medical advisory board members, Dr. Sylvia Stacchiotti, and one of our board of director members, Hans Kuehlen. And this was very exciting because it was the first time that a group like this had been brought together with the specific purpose of creating recommendations for the treatment of chordoma that are based on the evidence that has been published in medical and research papers. And so the paper that was a result of this consensus group meeting, which was in large part co-authored by Dr. Stacchiotti and Josh, was published this past February in the medical journal, The Lancet Oncology. And this was a great achievement, and it's a wonderful resource for the medical community. But as it is a medical paper that was written for medical professionals, it's not so easy to read for those of us who aren't medical professionals. So for the past few months, we have been working to translate the very technical language of the paper into terms that are easier to understand, more accessible to the patient community, and therefore will be more helpful as a resource to patients as a patient guide. So that is what you have in your hands today, and you're actually the first ones to see this, first patients to see this. And so it's in the final stages of review, and so as representatives of the group that would be using this paper, we would really like for you to participate in that review process and let us know and give us your feedback on the guide. So we'd like to know what you think about it, and we would also like to know what else you would like to see in future editions of the guide. The consensus group will meet later this year for a second time. There will be additional members, and they will be talking about additional topics. So we would like to be able to take to them your needs and your ideas and your requests at that time. So to that end, on the very back page of the guide, there is a link to a web-based survey where you can go and let me know what you think about it, and then also let me know what you'd like for the future. And so I thank you in advance for taking the time to do that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have to say about it. So those announcements. I would also like to make sure to invite you to visit the resource table out in the lobby. You will find a lot of free resources from cancer organizations, and then a number of books that have been donated. And one of those is the recently published Confronting Chordoma Cancer, An Uncommon Journey, written by Susan Garbett, a Chordoma patient. She was kind enough to donate a number of copies of the book so that they're here for you today. And all of the books on the resource table are available for a suggested donation to the foundation, and one of our wonderful volunteers, Jason, will be out there throughout the day to help you out with that. So please stop by and see everything that's there for you. And to save my best announcement for last, speaking of wonderful volunteers, I really want to take a minute to thank all the volunteers who have helped so much to make this day possible. We had a very dedicated group who worked tirelessly and on so many aspects of today and the entire weekend. So the New York City crew was Sharon Berlin, Nadine Cordova, and Bill Monahan. And Adrian Rothstein helped out from all the way on the West Coast in California, and Norma Jones all the way from down south in Alabama. So thank you, huge thank you to all of you. It was great to work with you. So that's about it. To close, I want to make sure to say that if there's anything that you need during the day, please come find me, or anyone else, any of the other foundation staff. You can look for our silver and blue name tags. And I hope that this is a great day of connecting and learning for all of you. Thanks.
We're so glad to have Shannon on our team, and I know many of you have probably heard of her, but now you see why we're so glad to have her join us. And really, Shannon, kudos to you and Anthony as well, our Chief Development Officer, for pulling this event together. It's really been wonderful to work with you on it. So just a couple more pieces of housekeeping and a few thank yous before moving on to our speakers. I want to first thank our very generous sponsor who has partially covered the cost of this event. Sanofi, it's a global pharmaceutical company, in part because of their donations, their grant and donations of others, were able to offer this event at no cost. So thanks very much to them. I want to just take a moment to recognize all of our staff who's here. Of course, Shannon, Anthony, our Chief Development Officer, Patty Cogswell, our Manager of Research, and Tammy Silverthorne, our Director of Operations. Without them, this would not be possible, and all of them have done just an extraordinary amount of work to pull this all together. I also, in particular, want to thank our co-hosts here at Sloan Kettering, all of the faculty who are dedicating and volunteering part of their weekend to be with us. And in particular, I want to recognize a couple people who put in an enormous amount of effort to make this possible. Dr. Ilya Laufer, who was really our main counterpart here at Sloan Kettering to put this event on, as well as Shahiba Ogilvy from the Department of Neurosurgery, who's just been a remarkable resource in pulling this together in so many ways. So thank you very much to everyone here at Sloan Kettering. Just a couple final housekeeping notes. I think as everyone knows, we've been collecting questions through the registration process, and there have been a lot of questions that were collected through the Facebook group. Shannon has compiled all of those questions. We're going to ask them to the experts this afternoon. But if there are additional questions that come up throughout the day, please let us know. We've got a little bin on the registration table where you can put a note card, and we will try to ask the questions that come up throughout the day to the experts in the afternoon. And then one final piece of housekeeping, then I'll turn it over to Dr. Laufer. One thing that we mention at all of our conferences is that this is really a day of learning, and it's a day where we're going to hear from a lot of the top medical experts in Chordoma. And I know so many of us are dealing with Chordoma, dealing with potential recurrences, have questions about our own health. But I think it's really important to mention that this is not the time or the place to ask questions about our own situations. It's not a place where we can put doctors on the spot and ask them to give opinions or provide consults. So it's really important. We want to get invited back here. We don't want to put the doctors in an awkward situation. So if you do have questions about your own health situation, I'm sure that any of the doctors would be more than happy to follow up with you and schedule a phone call or a clinic visit. But just want to make sure that we stick to that important ground rule. So without further ado, I want to welcome Dr. Ilya Laufer, who's going to make a few remarks. Dr. Laufer is a fellowship-trained spine surgeon here at Sloan Kettering, a member of the spine tumor program, and really has been instrumental in pulling together a multidisciplinary group of physicians here at Sloan Kettering who are really dedicated to chordoma from so many different perspectives, from neurosurgery, from orthopedic surgery, from radiation oncology and medical oncology. And the group here is really extraordinary, and it's just been such a pleasure to get a chance to work with Ilya. So, Ilya, welcome.
First thing I have to say is that I cannot possibly take credit for pulling everybody together at Memorial Sloan Kettering, because they've been doing this for many, many years before I got to join them, but I kind of get to be the cheerleader sometimes, and it's a wonderful privilege. I'll be very brief. Really, two thank yous. I think the first one, on behalf of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, is really to the Chordoma Foundation. It's such a privilege to be part of your mission and what you do. And Josh has been just amazing. I met him a few years ago, and on a couple of occasions, I've had the privilege of making introductions between him and some of the scientists. And every time Josh walks out of the room, when we're done, the scientist says, "Who is this guy, and why does he know so much more about chordoma than I do? He doesn't have a PhD." And this goes, along with just Josh's brilliance and his ability to bring people together. And it's, I think, such a difficult thing to do sometimes, to bring scientists and clinicians who may have different views about how to treat somebody, or how to go about researching this. And he's the one person who's able to bring these people together in a very inspirational way. One of the first times I got really, really excited about chordoma research and the mission was a conference in Boston a couple of years ago. And I think several of the speakers were there, and everybody walked out of that conference saying, "Wow, let's do more." And it's such a powerful message. And such a powerful way to get together. So thank you to Josh and everybody from the Chordoma Foundation. I think you guys worked together so beautifully to make Chordoma a thing of the past, and I'm sure it's just a matter of time, and we know that the Chordoma Foundation is going to play a pivotal role in that, in curing chordoma. So it's a privilege for us to be part of this mission. Thank you. The second thank you is actually to all the people in the audience. Just a short story from my training. As neurosurgery residents, we take care of many neurosurgical diseases, disorders, take care of many sick people. And subarachnoid hemorrhage is one of the things we take care of, and hopefully most of you are not familiar with it. It's when a vessel ruptures in the brain, and people get very sick from it. Many people die from that. The people who do make it to the hospital after this happens are incredibly sick. And we show up to work and we take care of many sick people all the time, especially as residents, but most of the time we don't really get to see people outside of the hospital when they leave the hospital. And I think my time is about to be up, so I'll be very quick. We had a woman who became extremely sick when I was finishing up my training, and she spent about a month in the hospital, had all sorts of tubes, and was incredibly sick, left without being able to speak to anybody. And a year later, she did just great and wanted to thank people. And she had a party for the nurses, all the staff, the residents, the other clinicians who were taking care of her. And being able to see her outside of the hospital among the people who love her and just getting to know who she is was probably one of the most memorable and powerful experiences during my training. And it was a wonderful reminder of why we actually show up to work every day, to make people better and to help them at the time when they're sick and make any type of disease a thing of their past. And once again, this is really why we come here. So just the fact that everybody's here and we get to meet you and talk to you about it is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for reminding us of why we come to work and why we're here.